In this movie I want to take a look at the Vectorworks Windows interface, and this is subtly different from the Macintosh one, but there is a separate movie for the Mac interface, so make sure you get to watch the correct one. I guess the first thing you're going to want to do when you launch Vectorworks is to make sure that you have the correct workspace or tools and menus available for the product that you've purchased. And you can do this by going to the Tools menu, going down to Workspaces, and then checking that you have Architect, Designer, Fundamentals, Landmark, Spotlight, and so on. The workspace I'm using here is the Designer ANZ workspace. So once you've confirmed that, then you'll be confident that you're seeing the correct tools and menu layout and so on that you should be seeing for your product. Briefly, on the left hand side we have the tool palettes. We have the drop down menus here for the various menu commands. Here we have the toolbar. Over here we have a floating palette called an object info palette, and we have resource browser, navigation, visualization, attributes palette, and constraints or snapping palette. So let's take a look at these in a little bit more detail. We'll start over here with the basic tool palettes. Tools are generally what you use to create objects, like a rectangle, circle, square, wall, and so on. And they can be arranged in a couple of different views, either by icon, and here we're seeing them in icon view, or here in icon and text mode, and you can also have them in text only. And you can change this setting by using the little drop down utility menu at the bottom here, and if I click there you'll see I can view tools as icons, icons and text, and you can also change the sorting order and customize the tool set, or in fact the whole workspace. So these ones are in icon view, these ones are in icon and text view, and if we click down here you'll see we get the same set of options just off the bottom of the screen. So what we're looking at here is that we have icon and text view for these tool sets, and for the sets themselves we're just in icon mode. Now when you hover over a tool you will get a description of the tool, and if it has a keyboard shortcut you'll also get the keyboard shortcut listed. So the keyboard shortcut for the wall tool is 9, the keyboard shortcut for polygon tool is 8, for the eyedropper tool is Shift plus E, and so on. And when you are hovering over a tool you can expand the description of the tool by pressing the Shift key or by clicking the little disclosure arrow here. And if you click the arrow then you'll get this expanded help for each tool item until you go back in and click that disclosure arrow again. So you can do that either by clicking the arrow or by pressing the Shift key. You'll also notice that some tools have a little black triangle in the bottom right hand corner, or a little arrow to the right hand side here. Now this means that the tool has other tools in the same tool position. You'll see this in various different palettes, and to access this you can mouse down and you'll find that there are other tools in the same position. Same thing happens here. If we hold the mouse down then eventually a little menu will fly out and we're able to choose a different tool. You're also able to access that very quickly by right clicking and then going to choose the other tool that might be hidden, and that tool then becomes the active tool and the other one becomes hidden. So there's not that many tools that have other ones below, but there are some, and you need to look out for that little arrow if you find that you think a tool should be in a particular position and it's not there. Across the top of the drawing here we have a series of options, and you can control which options appear here, but by default you'll see we have the previous view and next view buttons. These allow you to jump back to the previous 10 or 20 views that you've had and then move forward again. We also have a menu here that displays the classes in the active document, and you can jump to the organization dialog by clicking the little button here beside it. That icon there represents classes. You'll see that in a few places in the interface. If I click there, you'll see that the organization dialog will open and the classes tab will be active, and here you can edit and classes and add them and so on. The same thing applies to design layers or layers. We have a drop down menu for layers here. It will list design layers at the bottom and sheet layers at the top if there are any, and again you can jump straight to the organization dialog layers tab by clicking on the button to the left of that one. This button here is look at working plane. This one here allows you to set whether objects are drawn on the layer plane or the screen plane. If you're working only in 2D, then I recommend that you set this to screen plane. Here we have access to saved to be able to save a view, or if there are saved views in the document, these will be listed in this menu here as well. We then have three controls, the first being fit to page, and clicking on the fit to page icon will zoom the drawing out so that it fits on the designated page size. That's that one there, fit to page area. We then have fit to objects. This will zoom you out so that you see all the objects in the drawing. If you have one or more objects selected, then it will zoom you to fit just those selected objects on the drawing. Then we have the zoom in key or button, and if you hold the Alt key it will zoom out. Here we have the zoom percentage, so you can set the exact percentage zoom, and you can also click here to choose one of the default zoom levels. Obviously you can zoom in by other methods using the mouse and so on as well. We then have the screen plane modes. Here we have the standard views, and again, if you're not working in 3D, you don't need to have this up here. This list here is exactly the same as the list you'll find in the view menu under standard views. The same list appears there. We then have rotated plan view, unified view, and the render mode. And the render mode is pretty much the same as the render modes you can choose in the view menu under rendering. There's a few more options in this menu. Now, to control what you see in those menus, you can use this drop down menu here, and you'll see everything with a tick or check mark is appearing currently in the mode bar. So if I don't want to have the rotated view, I can just choose that again and it will disappear from out here. If I'm not doing any rendering, then I can choose to turn off the render mode and I won't see that either. And this way you can control what appears here. If I only want the short zoom, I can choose that. If I don't want the long zoom, choose that again. And that way you can declutter this up here and just get the things that are important to the way that you work. The next thing you'll see across the top of the drawing is the mode bar, and the options here will change depending on the tool that you have selected. So with the selection tool active, I'll get the options for that tool. If I choose the double line polygon tool, then I'll get different options. So you need to look across the top of the drawing depending on the tool you have selected to check what options are currently active. And these options are persistent, so that if you use the tool and switch it to, say, this mode here and another mode here, then it will stay on those options the next time you come back to the tool. At the other end here you have the ability to add some commonly used Vectorworks preferences by clicking this disclosure arrow here. For example, auto join, auto save, black and white only, show other objects, show rulers, layer colors, zoom line thickness, and so on. And again, you add and remove these by choosing it. You'll see if I choose this one, then that item has been removed. If I put zoom line thickness back in, then it will appear. And the order that these appear in are the order that you choose them from the list. You'll also notice that Document Preferences and Vectorworks Preferences can be directly accessed from this submenu, and all of those options can also be directly accessed by right-clicking anywhere up here, and you'll get direct access to them. So a very quick way to jump to Vectorworks Preferences or Document Preferences. Likewise, if you right-click up in the top section here, you'll get the options that we talked about a few minutes ago that normally appear when you click this button here. Now on Windows we have what's known as palette docking, and this allows the palettes to be absorbed into the edges of the drawing window. This object info palette here, for example, is currently docked on the right hand side, and if I were to click up here in the palette title and drag it out of here, you'll notice that it switches to a floating palette like these other palettes I've got here. If I put it back over there, as I get the cursor close to the edge of the drawing, you'll see it will jump back into that place, and if I then release the mouse, it will be docked. You're also able to dock other palettes by dragging them, say, down to the bottom here, and you'll see that it will now dock in that position as well. So if you'd like to have your palettes docked, then you can dock them and change their size by hovering the mouse over the bar between them. You can also change their width when docked by hovering over this line here and dragging it as well. And I can take it out just by clicking it and putting it back to where I might want it to be. Now with these palettes here, we have them set so that if you hover over the title, they will automatically drop down. You'll see if I hover over classes, it drops down, and so on. That automatic dropping down is controlled by this little pin icon here, and if I click that, it's called auto hide, then the palette will just stay down permanently. If I turn auto hide on, then when I'm not over some part of the palette, it will automatically just roll up again. There it goes. So we have the resource browser. There's a separate movie on the resource browser. The navigation palette, this allows you to interactively change class visibility and layer visibility and directly access your saved sheets, your viewports, saved views, and any references that you have. And you can also jump straight to some other functionality by right-clicking on any of the items that are displayed in the navigation palette. For example, if I right-click here, I can create a new layer, edit this layer, duplicate the layer, delete it, activate it, and so on. The visualization palette is where I can control the lights in the drawing, and if you have RenderWorks, also the cameras in the drawing. Here we have the attributes palette, and the attributes palette allows you to control the fill, color, style, and line weight. Let's begin by drawing a rectangle here, and it has a solid fill already. If I want it to have no fill, I can just set it to none, and I'll be able to see right through it. If I set its fill to solid again, I can choose a color to fill it with. If I click opacity, I can control the opacity, so if I put that down to 50%, the object will then become transparent. You'll see I can now see through the object, and that will apply to any of the other kinds of fills that I can put in it. For example, a hatch, a tile fill, and once you've chosen the tile fill or a hatch or whatever, you can choose the particular one that you want from the menu beside that. Gradients, image fills, and so on. We can also control the line thickness and line style here, so if I give it a thick line weight, you'll see that the line weight will fatten up. And if this was a line, arc, open polyline or open polygon, then the other controls at the bottom here allow me to turn on the arrow or turn off the arrow at either end of the line. And if I do have the arrow turned on, I can also set the style of the arrow by clicking to the right of that, and I can set the style of the arrow. At the bottom of the palette here, there's a little utility menu, and I'll just move this up so you can see it in the movie. This menu allows me to do a few things, and the two important ones are make all attributes by class and remove all attributes by class. They're quite useful. Finally, when talking about the palettes, we have got the constraint or snapping palette, as it's sometimes known. I'll just move that one back down there, and this is the constraint palette here. The first constraint is snap to grid, and I would recommend that is nearly always off unless you have a specific need to have it turned on. These other four are generally on, although some people like to have the snap to angle turned off, and having that turned off will mean that if you take, say, the polygon tool that as you start to draw, this line won't be constrained in any way, but you can make it become constrained by pressing the shift key down, and if I hold the shift key down, then I will get a constraint kicking in. So you'll see now that this is snapping to various angles. So if you have the angle snap turned off, then you have to hold the shift key down to get that same functionality. So that should give you an overview of how the Windows interface works in Vectorworks. One thing I forgot to mention, if you do happen to close one of these palettes, so if I close the visualization palette, clicking this little button here, and I want to reopen it, and this applies to any of the palettes, if you go up to the window menu, then down to palettes, you'll get a list of the available palettes, and if they don't have a check mark or tick beside it, then just clicking it again will make it come back to the last saved position. And if you do move your palettes around, then also in the window menu under palettes, you'll see that you're able to save palette positions. And just one final thing about the window menu, this is also where you get a list of currently open documents. So I currently have one open called Win Interface and another one called Untitled 1. So I can switch between these active or open documents, making a different one active simply by coming up here to the window menu and choosing an alternative document.